My hands won't stop shaking as I stare at the screen. The email subject line burns into my eyes: urgent, criminal investigation, Marco Duca. 3 years. 3 years of marriage, of building a life, of believing I knew the man I loved. And now federal agents are at my door, telling me everything was a lie. But to understand how I got here, how a broken waitress became the wife of New York's most wanted man, I need to take you back to where it all started. Back to the night I danced in the rain and caught the attention of a monster. Subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because this story gets darker before it gets light. I was 24 years old when I learned what true exhaustion feels like. Not the tired you feel after a long day. I'm talking about the bone-deep fatigue that comes from working 3 jobs and still not having enough money to live. My name is Emma Parker, and I was invisible. The kind of invisible that comes from being poor in a city that worships money. Every morning started at 4 a.m. I'd drag myself out of my studio apartment in Brooklyn, a shoebox so small I could touch both walls with my arms spread, and take 2 subway trains to Murphy's Diner in Midtown. The breakfast shift. Old men who complained about their eggs. Business people who didn't bother to look up when they ordered. Tips that barely covered my subway fare back. At 2 p.m., I'd rush to my second job cleaning offices downtown. Getting on my hands and knees to scrub toilets for people who made more in an hour than I made in a month. Sometimes I'd sit in those fancy executive chairs and pretend, just for a moment, that I was someone who mattered. Someone whose voice counted. Someone people actually saw. Then at 8 p.m., my third shift started. Hotel maid at a luxury hotel where rooms cost more per night than my monthly rent. I'd change sheets that smelled like expensive perfume and champagne, empty trash cans filled with receipts for dinners I couldn't afford, and wonder how different my life might have been if I'd been born into money instead of struggle. My mother died when I was 16. Cancer, fast and brutal. My father lasted 2 years before his liver gave out. Turns out drowning your grief in whiskey isn't a sustainable coping mechanism. I had no siblings, no aunts or uncles who wanted the burden of a teenage girl. So I aged out of foster care at 18 with exactly $300, a high school diploma, and the crushing understanding that I was completely alone in the world. 6 years later, nothing had changed. I was still alone. Still struggling. Still invisible. That Friday night started like any other. My feet ached in my worn sneakers as I clocked out of my hotel shift at midnight. My uniform, a gray dress that had seen better days, smelled like industrial cleaning solution and other people's lives. The bus home would take 40 minutes. 40 minutes to sit and not think about how my life had become this endless cycle of work, sleep, with no end in sight. But when I got to the bus stop, a digital sign blinked mockingly at me: service suspended, severe weather. I looked up. Dark clouds had rolled in while I was cleaning penthouse suites, and now fat raindrops were beginning to fall. Not a gentle spring rain. This was the kind of storm that turns city streets into rivers and makes you question every life choice that led to this moment. My phone had 7% battery. My wallet had $8.35. Not enough for a cab. Not even enough for a subway that ran to my neighborhood. And the next bus wouldn't come until morning. So I started walking. 15 blocks. In a storm. At midnight. In a city that doesn't care if you live or die. The rain hit hard and fast. Within 30 seconds, I was drenched. My hair plastered to my face. My uniform clinging to my body. Water filled my shoes, making each step a soggy nightmare. I should have cried. Should have screamed at the unfairness of it all. Should have felt sorry for myself. But something strange happened. I stopped in the middle of an empty street, rain pouring down so hard it looked like silver sheets under the streetlights, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. Not the freedom that comes from having money or choices or security. The freedom that comes from hitting rock bottom and realizing you have nothing left to lose. The freedom of not caring anymore what the world thinks because the world has never thought about you at all. I closed my eyes. Tilted my face toward the sky. Let the rain wash away the smell of cleaning chemicals and other people's privilege. And then, for reasons I still don't fully understand, I danced. Not choreographed. Not pretty. Just movement. Just my body expressing what my mouth could never say, I'm here. I exist. I matter, even if no one is watching. I spun in circles with my arms wide. Laughed at the absurdity of it all. For 60 seconds, I wasn't Emma Parker, the girl with 3 jobs and no future. I was just a woman in a storm, claiming a moment of joy that belonged only to me. I didn't know someone was watching. I didn't know that across the street, standing in the shadows of a luxury building I'd never be allowed inside, a man had stopped and frozen mid-step to stare at me. I didn't know that man was Marco Duca, and that he hadn't felt anything real in so long that watching me dance cracked something open inside his chest. I didn't know my life was about to change forever. But what happened next would make me question everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and the price of being seen. Monday morning came too fast. I was at Murphy's Diner, serving my 100th cup of coffee and fighting to keep my eyes open, when Carol, my boss, called me into the back. Emma, I need you to do a special delivery today. I frowned. Carol, I'm a waitress, not a delivery, it's a VIP client. Very specific request. Pays $500 for the delivery. My heart stopped. $500. That would cover my overdue rent with enough left for groceries that weren't ramen noodles. What's the catch? No catch. Just drop off the order, smile, and leave. She slid an address across the counter, not meeting my eyes. The address was in Manhattan's wealthiest district. The kind of neighborhood where doormen wear white gloves and dogs have better healthcare than I do. 3 hours later, I stood in front of a mansion that looked like it belonged in a movie about people who buy politicians for fun. Iron gates. Marble fountain. Gardens so perfect they looked fake. A man in a black suit, clearly security, frisked me before letting me inside. Kitchen. Leave the food and go. But when I entered the kitchen, all marble countertops and commercial-grade appliances, someone else was there. Him. I didn't know who Marco Duca was then. Didn't know he controlled half of New York's underground. All I saw was a man in tailored black pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing intricate tattoos that climbed his forearms. Dark hair, sharp jawline, and eyes, God, his eyes were gray like storm clouds, and they were looking at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. You, he said. Just that. One word. But the way he said it made my skin prickle. I brought your order, sir. My hands trembled as I set the bags down. He didn't move. Just stared at me with an intensity that made me want to either run or step closer, I couldn't decide which. Do you dance in the rain often? My blood turned to ice. What? Friday night. 52nd and Madison. You danced in the storm. He moved closer, and I could smell expensive cologne mixed with something darker. Why? My mouth went dry. He saw me. That private moment, that stolen second of freedom. He'd been watching. I didn't know anyone was there. I was. Another step. He was so close now I could feel the heat radiating from his body. And I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. About you. Who are you? His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Marco Duca. And you, Bella, just became mine. Before I could process those words, he continued, you're going to work for me now. As my personal assistant. $15,000 a month. My brain short-circuited. 15, what? Why? Because I want you close. His eyes darkened. And what I want, I get. I should have said no. Should have recognized the danger in his eyes, in the gun I could see under a nearby bodyguard's jacket, in the way everyone in this house moved like they were prepared for violence at any moment. But when I thought about $15,000, about finally being able to breathe, to sleep, to exist without drowning, the word that came out of my mouth was, yes. That yes changed everything. My first week at the Duca mansion felt like living in a fever dream. I woke up in a room bigger than my entire former apartment, with a bed so soft I kept waking up thinking I'd died. Closets full of expensive clothes Marco had ordered for me. You represent my household now, he'd said, as if that explained the thousands of dollars in designer labels. But luxury came with a price I hadn't anticipated. Marco was everywhere. When I had breakfast, he appeared. When I organized files in his office, I felt his eyes tracking my every movement. When I tried to read in the library, he materialized from the shadows like he'd been waiting for me. You're avoiding me, Emma, he said one Thursday evening. I was in the conservatory, pretending to focus on a book. The truth was, I was trying to process my new reality. A week ago, I'd been scrubbing toilets. Now I lived in a mansion with a man who made grown men freeze when he walked into a room. I'm not avoiding you. I'm adjusting. He sat beside me on the velvet sofa. Too close. His thigh pressed against mine, and I could feel the warmth of him through my dress. Adjusting to what? The money? The safety? His voice was soft, but there was something sharp underneath. To me? All of it, I admitted. Especially you. Something passed across his face. Something almost vulnerable. I scare you. It wasn't a question. Yes, I whispered. You terrify me. Instead of getting angry, he leaned back, studying me with those penetrating gray eyes. Good. You should be scared. Do you know what I do, Emma? Who I really am? I've heard whispers. The staff talks about territory and families and, whispers don't capture it. He stood, walking to the windows overlooking the city lights. I control this city. Everything that moves, everything that breathes, I have a hand in it. People fear me because they should. I've done things that would make you sick if you knew the details. Then why me? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Why someone like me? He turned so fast I flinched. In 2 strides, he was in front of me, his hands gripping the sofa arms on either side of me, caging me in. Never, his voice was lethal, call yourself someone like me again. Do you understand? But I'm nobody. I was a waitress who, you were a woman who danced in the rain like she had nothing to lose. Who smiled through a storm like it was freedom itself. His face was inches from mine. Do you know how rare that is? True, unguarded joy. My heart pounded so hard I was sure he could hear it. I don't understand. I know. His thumb traced my jawline, and electricity shot through me. I've lived 32 years in darkness, Emma. Blood. Violence. Betrayal. That's my world. And then I saw you dancing, and for 5 minutes, I forgot what I was. Marco. I want you to stay. His voice cracked slightly. Not because I pay you. Because you choose to. Before I could answer, his phone rang. The vulnerable man disappeared, replaced by the cold Mafia boss everyone feared. Cosa, he answered in Italian, his voice deadly. Whatever he heard made his jaw tighten. Quando? He hung up and looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Fear. Stay in your room tonight. Don't come out no matter what you hear. What's happening? Business. He headed for the door, then paused. Emma, I mean it. Stay inside. Lock the door. You're scaring me. Good. His eyes met mine one last time. Fear keeps you alive in my world. But what happened next would teach me that sometimes, fear isn't enough. I tried to obey. I really did. But at 2 a.m., gunshots echoed through the mansion. Not movie gunshots. Real ones, sharp cracks that made my whole body jolt. My feet moved before my brain could stop them. I crept out of my room, heart hammering against my ribs. Voices shouted in Italian. More gunshots. Then a silence so thick it felt like drowning. I found Marco in his office, surrounded by shattered glass. Blood dripped from a cut on his forehead. 3 of his men stood guard, guns drawn. And on the floor, I covered my mouth to keep from screaming. A body. A man I didn't recognize. Very clearly dead. Marco's eyes snapped to mine. Fury and fear flashed across his face. I told you to stay in your room. I heard gunshots. You thought what? That you could help. He crossed the room in 3 strides, gripping my shoulders. This is my world, Emma. This is what I am. Death. Violence. Darkness. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Who was he? Someone who wanted me dead. His grip softened. Someone who would have killed you too if he'd found you first. The weight of those words hit me. I wasn't just living with a dangerous man. I was in danger because of him. I should leave. No. The word was absolute. Marco, I can't, you leave, you die. His eyes bored into mine. My enemies know about you now. They'll use you to get to me whether you're here or not. The only place you're safe is by my side. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Bella. He pulled me against his chest, and I could feel his heart racing as fast as mine. But I swear on my life, no one will touch you. Not while I'm breathing. I should have been terrified. Should have run screaming. But wrapped in his arms, surrounded by danger and death, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Protected. And that's when I knew I was in real trouble. Because I was falling for the most dangerous man in New York, and there was no safety net to catch me. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of tension and stolen moments. Marco assigned 4 bodyguards to me. I couldn't go anywhere without armed men following. At first, it felt suffocating. Then I saw the bullet holes in one of the SUVs after a routine grocery run, and I understood. Someone really was trying to kill him. And by extension, me. Emma, we need to talk. Marco found me in the library on another rainy afternoon. The irony wasn't lost on me. About? There's a gala tomorrow night. All the major families will be there. He sat across from me, unusually tense. I need you to come with me. Why? Because showing up with you sends a message. That you're under my protection. That anyone who touches you answers to me. So I'm bait. You're mine to protect. There's a difference. He leaned forward. Emma, these people, they're not normal society. They're predators. Sharks. They'll be watching you, looking for any weakness. Exactly. Which is why you need to trust me. His hand cupped my face. Stay close to me. Don't talk to anyone without me present. And if something happens, you run. Don't look back. Just run. I'm not leaving you. The word surprised us both. Emma, you said I'm yours, right? My voice was stronger now. That works both ways. If you're in danger, I'm not running. Something fierce flared in his eyes. In one movement, he had me against the wall, his body pressing into mine. You're killing me. You know that? His voice was rough. Every day you're here. Every time you challenge me. You're destroying every wall I've built. Maybe that's not a bad thing. It's the most dangerous thing that's ever happened to me. His forehead touched mine. Because now I have something to lose. Marco. I want to kiss you so badly it's torture. My breath caught. Then why don't you? Because once I start, I won't be able to stop. His thumb traced my lower lip. And you deserve better than being claimed against a wall like, I kissed him. Didn't think. Didn't plan. Just rose on my toes and pressed my lips to his. For one heartbeat, he froze. Then he groaned and kissed me back with an intensity that made my knees weak. His hands tangled in my hair, his body pinning me to the wall as he kissed me like he was drowning and I was air. Emma, he breathed against my lips. Dio mio, Emma. Don't stop. I have to. But he kissed me again, deeper, more desperate. If I don't stop now, I'll take you right here. I don't want you to stop. Something broke in him. He lifted me, and I wrapped my legs around his waist as he carried me to the sofa. His kisses moved to my neck, my collarbone, each one sending fire through my veins. Tell me to stop, he whispered. Tell me you don't want this. I can't, I gasped. Because I'd be lying. He pulled back enough to look at me, his eyes dark with desire and something deeper. You're mine, Emma Parker. Do you understand? Mine to protect. Mine to cherish. Mine. And you're mine, I whispered back. Even if you're dangerous. Even if this is crazy. You're mine. The kiss that followed sealed something between us. A promise. A claim. A point of no return. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, Marco rested his forehead against mine. Tomorrow night changes everything. Are you ready for that? As long as I'm with you. Always, Bella. Always. But I had no idea how much everything was about to change. The gala was like stepping into a world I'd only seen in movies. The venue was a historic Manhattan hotel dripping with crystal chandeliers and old money. Men in custom suits escorted women wearing jewelry worth more than I'd earned in my entire life. And everyone stared at us when we entered. Marco's hand rested possessively on my lower back. He wore an all-black suit that made him look like sin incarnate, his tattoos hidden except for the edge peeking from his collar. Why is everyone staring? I whispered. Because I've never brought anyone to one of these events. His lips brushed my ear. And because you're the most beautiful woman here. Before I could respond, an older man approached. Everything about him screamed danger, from his cold eyes to the way even Marco tensed. Marco. How unexpected to see you here with, company. His eyes raked over me dismissively. And who might this be? Santino. Marco's voice was ice. Meet Emma Parker. Emma, this is Santino Ricci, head of the Ricci family. The rival family. The one that wanted him dead. Charming. Santino smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Tell me, Miss Parker, how does a waitress from Murphy's Diner end up on Marco Duca's arm? My blood ran cold. He knew where I'd worked. He'd investigated me. Careful. Marco's voice was lethal. You're speaking to someone under my protection. Of course, of course. Santino raised his hands in mock surrender. I meant no disrespect. Simply curious about what makes her so special. She's not your concern. Everything about you is my concern, Marco. Santino leaned closer. Enjoy the evening, Miss Parker. These events can be so unpredictable. He walked away, and I could finally breathe again. That was a threat. Yes. Marco guided me toward a private balcony. He's testing me. Seeing if you're a weakness. Am I? He turned to face me, his eyes burning with intensity. You're my everything. Which, yes, makes you both my greatest strength and my greatest weakness. Before I could respond, the world exploded. Gunshots erupted inside the ballroom. Screams. Breaking glass. Chaos. Marco shoved me behind a marble column, his gun appearing from nowhere. Stay down. More gunshots. I watched men in black masks flood the ballroom. Guests running. Bodies falling. Marco stepped into the line of fire, returning shots with deadly precision. One of the masked men spotted me. Started running toward the balcony. Marco saw him. Turned. Fired. The man dropped 3 feet from me. Now, Emma. Run. But I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The reality of Marco's world had just become horrifyingly real. He grabbed my hand and pulled me through a service entrance. Behind us, more gunshots, his men yelling in Italian, the smell of gunpowder thick in the air. We reached the parking garage. He shoved me into an SUV, jumping in after me. Drive, he barked at his driver. As we sped away, I finally looked at Marco. Blood stained his white shirt. His knuckles were raw. But his eyes were focused only on me. Are you hurt? I shook my head, unable to speak. Emma, look at me. He cupped my face with bloody hands. I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry you had to see that. You killed those men. To protect you. To protect everyone in that room. His voice was raw. This is my world. This is what I do. Tears finally spilled down my cheeks. I know. I'll take you somewhere safe. Somewhere far from here where you can start over. Forget all this. No. He blinked. What? I'm not leaving you. I grabbed his shirt, pulling him close. Yes, I'm terrified. Yes, this is insane. But I'm not running. Emma, you don't understand. That attack, that was because of you. Santino is trying to get to me through you. Then we deal with it together. You could die. I could die crossing the street. My voice was surprisingly steady. At least if I die, it'll be next to someone I stopped. But the words hung between us. Someone I love. Marco's eyes widened. Then he kissed me with a desperation that made everything before seem tame. His hands everywhere, like he needed to confirm I was real and alive. I love you, he breathed against my lips. Dio mio aiuti, I love you. I love you too. This is going to get worse before it gets better. I know. You might hate me before this is over. Impossible. He held me as the SUV raced through New York streets, sirens wailing in the distance. And despite the danger, despite the blood and fear, I'd never felt more certain of anything. I was exactly where I belonged. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that loving Marco Duca came with a price. And soon, I'd have to decide if I was willing to pay it. The war started the next morning. I woke in a safe house, a fortress, really, surrounded by armed guards. Marco was already on the phone, barking orders in rapid Italian. His face was grim. What's happening? Santino declared open war. He hung up and looked at me with exhausted eyes. He's hitting all my businesses. Targeting my men. He wants to flush me out. What do we do? We end this. His eyes went cold. Today. The next hours were a blur. Marco's men gathered, dozens of them, armed to the teeth. Plans were drawn. Strategies discussed. And through it all, Marco kept me close, his hand never leaving mine. I want you to stay here, he finally said. With my best men. Where you're safe. Absolutely not. Emma, you think I can just sit here while you walk into danger? While you might, my voice broke. No. I'm coming with you. You'll be a distraction. I'll be your reason to come back alive. Something shifted in his eyes. He nodded. You stay in the SUV. Behind bulletproof glass. You don't get out no matter what. Capito? Understood. The warehouse district was abandoned when we arrived. Perfect for what Marco called a reckoning. Santino's men were already there. At least 50 of them. Marco had brought equal force. Stay here, Marco said. Lock the doors. Vincenzo stays with you. His most trusted guard nodded, positioning himself at my door. I watched through the tinted window as Marco walked into no man's land. Santino met him halfway. I couldn't hear their words. But I could see the tension. Marco's hand hovering near his gun. Santino gesturing angrily. Then everything went to hell. One shot. I don't know who fired first. Then dozens. Hundreds. Men dove for cover. Muzzle flashes lit up the dim warehouse. I screamed as I saw Marco drop behind a car. Is he hit? He's fine, Miss Parker. Stay down. Vincenzo pushed my head below the window line. But I couldn't stop watching. Couldn't breathe until I saw Marco return fire, clearly unhurt. The battle lasted forever and no time at all. When the shooting stopped, men lay on the ground. So much blood. Marco stood in the center, facing Santino. Both had guns trained on each other. Then Santino said something. Marco laughed, actually laughed, and lowered his weapon. Santino lowered his too. They talked for another minute. Then shook hands. Wait. What? Marco walked back to the SUV, opened my door, and pulled me out despite Vincenzo's protests. It's over. What do you mean it's over? You were just shooting at each other. Santino was never the problem. He was being pressured by the Colombians. Marco smiled at my confused expression. I offered him a better deal. Welcome to Mafia politics, Bella. So no more war. No more war. Santino gets the waterfront territory. I keep everything else. We both profit. He cupped my face. And most importantly, you're safe. That's it. That's how this ends. Sometimes the biggest battles are won with words, not bullets. He kissed me softly. But make no mistake, I would have killed every man here if that's what it took to protect you. You're insane. Completely. He grinned. And you love me anyway. Unfortunately, yes. As we drove away, his men cheering in victory, Marco pulled something from his pocket. A small black box. My heart stopped. Emma Parker. He opened it to reveal a ring that probably cost more than my childhood home. I'm a criminal. A killer. A man drowning in darkness. But you're my light. My salvation. Will you marry me? Tears blurred my vision. This is crazy. We've known each other for 3 weeks. Best 3 weeks of my life. We almost died multiple times. All the more reason not to waste time. His eyes held mine. Say yes, Emma. Make me the happiest criminal alive. I should have said no. Should have been sensible. Instead, I whispered, yes. He slipped the ring on my finger and kissed me like we weren't surrounded by armed guards in the aftermath of a gunfight. And maybe that was insane. Maybe I was making the biggest mistake of my life. But as he held me close, whispering Italian endearments I was learning to understand, I realized something. I danced alone in the rain because I felt invisible. Forgotten. Lost. But Marco saw me. Not just looked, saw. The real me beneath the poverty and exhaustion. And for better or worse, in danger and in peace, I was his. Forever. 3 years later, I stood on the balcony of our Manhattan penthouse, watching the city lights twinkle below. Rain tapped gently against the glass. Nothing like that storm that changed everything. Penny for your thoughts. Marco wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. Just remembering. The rain dance. Did you know even then that you'd fall for me? The moment I saw you spin with your arms open, laughing at the storm. He kissed my neck. Yes. I knew you were either my salvation or my destruction. Which did I turn out to be? Both. Neither. Everything. He turned me to face him. You became my heart, Emma Duca. The thing I didn't know I was missing. I touched the tattoo on his neck, my name, added a year ago, just like I'd added his to my wrist. Do you ever regret it? Choosing this life? Not for a second. And I meant it. Yes, there were dangers. Yes, there were nights I worried he wouldn't come home. But there were also moments like this. Stolen peace with the man I loved more than breathing. Good. He smiled that dangerous smile I'd fallen for. Because I'm never letting you go. Possessive as always. Always. You're mine. Remember? And you're mine. From inside, I heard crying. Our 6-month-old daughter waking from her nap. Marco's expression softened instantly, the deadly Mafia boss transforming into a doting father. I'll get her. As he walked away, I looked back at the rain. 3 years ago, I'd been a waitress with 3 jobs and no hope. Now I was married to the most powerful man in New York, living a life I'd never dreamed possible. All because I danced in the rain. And because a dangerous man stood in the shadows, watching. Sometimes I still dance in the rain. But now I'm never alone. Marco is always there, pulling me close, spinning me around, laughing with me instead of just watching. We found each other in a storm, and together we learned to dance through every storm that came after. That's the thing about love, real, dangerous, beautiful love. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't follow rules. It just is. And ours? Ours was everything. Thank you for following my story until the end. If it touched your heart in any way, leave your like down below and share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'll be back soon with more stories that remind you that sometimes, the most dangerous choice is also the most beautiful one. Until next time.